quorum. Just a couple housekeeping items. I think Scott has to leave it.
Yes, as soon as
7:30?
possible, so.
Okay, I have to leave at 8 o'clock, so whatever business isn't finished. I think we'll just stick with the main issues, and move along from there. Notice that this meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a notice on the bulletin board in the library and municipal complex, faxing sunshine law notice to the Burlington County Times and Township Clerk, and posting on the library board webpage. Is there any public comment tonight? No, okay. The minutes of the meetings of April 23rd and May 28th are included in your packet.
I left some adjourned times out, as I did not write down the time we voted to adjourn at our last couple of meetings. If anybody can remember what time that was, it would be most helpful.
My recollection is on the meeting in May, it was about 7:55.
All right. And then thank you, Mr.
I wasn't at the March one, or the April one, so I'm not aware of that one.
I think that was 8:55.
On which one?
On the April 23rd, I think about 8:45, it was around 8:45, I think.
All right.
8:45.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It's in my diary.
Any other additions, corrections, changes?
Okay, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Comments, trustee.
Did you have that, Jeff?
I got it. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, thanks. Financial discussions, Ernie, the treasurer's
Okay,
report?
we should actually have two separate items. One is the regular budget expenditures. And at this stage of the game, we're operating, above expectations. We have a favorable variance. If you recall, we're anticipating expending more money than what we, have incurred coming in. So we have a deficit projected for the year of $69,000. And right now, we're operating at a deficit of $11,097. But as typically occurs, since it's kind of early in the year, at this stage of the game, the income and the revenue is not always spreading out. For example, we've got certain miscellaneous income that came in that we talked about at the last meeting that was unexpected. We have salaries that are below where we were expecting to be, so it's a favorable variance. But typically that will catch up by the end of the year. We have library supplies that are favorable. Once again, that may change as time goes on. Computer services and payroll services. So as of now, it looks like we're operating more favorably than we anticipated, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to work at the end of the year. Now, for each of the receipts, we have a specific cash receipts analysis report that everybody should have, and that should identify all the detail of the revenue that was received during the month of May. And then we also have a disbursements analysis report, which will show how every line item was expenses were reported, and that also is just for May, because we do it, as you know, every month. We also have a budget for the bequest donations account. And if you recall, we're operating at a deficit there because we utilized, a significant amount for the computer that we approved, for $24,100, and that's why we're running at the deficit. But that was anticipated because of the fact that we knew that we from this specific account rather than the absolute, the normal account. Okay, we have our cash receipts just for that. There's obviously not a lot involved there, $536 coming in and $76 going out. Do we have any questions related to, anything that I just covered?
Yes.
Ernie, excuse me, go ahead, Stan.
Ernie, what is ProQuest LLC? What is that?
ProQuest LLC is the company that owns the microfilm rights to the New York Times newspaper. That's who we pay for a microfilm copy of the New York Times
Oh,
and our digital copy of the New York Times, our online access to the New York Times.
we don't have hard copies?
Yeah. But then when they microfilm it every quarter,
Oh,
I don't want to have newspapers
Right.
piled up like some kind of hoarder.
I'm with you.
Ernie, I think what you said the budget for the year was a negative 69,000. I think that's the budget to date because we pay a lot of expenses. in
Yeah,
the
year to date, I'm
PERS.
sorry, yes.
It's year-to-date budget as
That's
opposed to our overall budget, which it's like 9,000.
We're projecting for the year 9,000, but when you look at it for the year-to-date, 69,041.
Because, for instance, the PERS payment is made in the beginning of the year, like 79,000 or so.
Yeah, it's a one-time shot.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions on the financial discussions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
Move.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Ernie and Joe. Okay, Joe, you're up on the director's report.
Well, it's a brief one. We are moving right along with getting our building open. You have to come over and visit your tree. All the collections are in, all the furniture is here and being installed even as we speak. We are anxiously awaiting our certificate of occupancy, our temporary, which we hope to at least apply for by the end of this week.
Actually, inspection is scheduled for Friday.
There you have it, right from the source. And as soon as we get that, we're opening our doors.
And we can meet there.
We could meet there, absolutely. So, all things considered, it's been a rocky ride, but it's been a fun one. Everybody has worked really, really hard, pulled together, and I think we've really got a good product over there. And I think the townspeople are going to be very impressed.
Yeah, I can tell you when I was walking into this building tonight, there were a couple of ladies walking by and they were oohing and the exterior of the building, so.
And we've got a lot of noses pressed up against the glass, which is great, you know, and they're getting a little taste of what they've got in store for them, so it's very exciting.
Scott, can you?
Yeah, I have actually one update, but before I get to that, I just want to let the rest of the board know, having watched the library staff work over the last couple of weeks, it's rare that I've seen a group of people work harder than they've worked to get everything from this building set up perfectly in that building. And yeah, one of the things I think as board members we can all take comfort in is that the staff is so dedicated. I mean, it's more than a job to these people. They are so invested in the new building that as beautiful as the building is and hopefully as functional as it is, it's still going to be that passion by the staff that really makes it a special library. So I just wanted to make sure the rest of the board
Thank you very
knew
much.
how well Joe and the staff were working.
Thank you very much.
Now that I've said that, I do have an update from Monday's council meeting that council asked me to bring something to the board. Greyhawk Construction had asked for a 1-month extension worth $18,000. That's essentially how much we've been paying Greyhawk all along. And while they've clearly been worth it, when they did their contract, they estimated the project, their daily participation to end at the end of May. And as we know, it's now almost the end of June, they're still working. So a contract extension was put in front of council for $18,000, and Councilman Garwood, because the extension, a big part of why they wanted to stay on the job day to day, and why I wanted them to stay on the job day to day, is to make sure that the library gets open. We got town hall open, we need to get the library open. There's still other reasons to keep them on the job on a day-to-day basis. There's a punch list that's been worked on by Sandy Construction on a daily basis, issues with the HVAC system, issues we had with the IT system. It's a brand new building and there's going to be issues, and I don't have the time or the expertise to play construction manager if Greyhawk leaves the job. But because one of the main reasons to keep them on was to ensure that the library gets in and functioning, Councilman Garwood suggested that the library board pick up part of that cost, since, and I want to be very careful to not speak for him, because he can certainly speak for himself, but my understanding was, his feeling was, the township got in on time and are functioning on time. And so since, you know, the primary reason for this is the library, that he asked me to come to the board, to ask the board if they'd be willing to pay half or $9,000 of this contract.
Well, first off, who was, what caused the delay of the month?
I don't think there was any one thing that caused the delay. It's, and I don't know that I would say a full month. I mean, the original contract was done over 18 months ago.
Okay.
You know, the town hall opened on time. The library is really, we never actually set a hard date until just a couple months ago. And I think we're only just days
not even
beyond
a full
that,
week.
not even a full week. So this contract amendment was going to come probably no matter what.
Right.
Because, like I said, we need a construction manager on site to deal with the contractor and subcontractors and the things that are popping up on an hour-to-hour basis. So
Is
I'm
that
not in favor.
18,000, is that a hard number? I mean,
it's a not-to-exceed number. Thank you for asking that. It's a
because that
not-to-exceed.
seems, if they're not really in full swing doing everything over there, if we've been paying them 18,000 a month, that seems a little high, just to be around.
Well, it's based on an hourly rate for the two primary people who are working on the project.
Uh-huh.
And it's a not-to-exceed number. So it's
So it could be
more
less.
than likely it's not even going to approach 18,000. That's a
And their his proposal was that the library pick up, so we're talking about 9,000.
or half, but
Okay.
BJ's right.
And
It's
it
half
could
of
be
what the-
14,000, it could be
First-
10.
I
Right.
don't think they should get any extra money.
Well,
You know, they should
Scott,
work to completion and.
Who's that, Greyhawk?
Greyhawk, and stand up to what their agreement to us was.
They did. They absolutely did stand up there.
But they're not finished.
They're the construction manager. They're not the contractor. They are the township's agent in dealing with the general contractor.
And when we agreed to pay them X number of dollars for their services,
Based on an hourly rate, like I said, for the two principals that were working on a month-to-month basis, that was the estimate they worked off. It wasn't, we're paying you until the job gets done. It was, we're paying you for this job, and this is the estimated time.
well, they estimated wrong.
Scott.
Well, and anyway, that's not a decision before the board tonight, because
Right.
council
Right.
agreed
They agreed to pay
to
them.
pay them, correct.
Then, if you agreed to pay them, then you pay.
Fair enough.
What I would suggest is, first of all, the township is financing this whole project, right?
Correct.
How many years is it being financed over?
It's hard to say because there's an auditor, you know, that Tom refinances.
So let's say 20 years.
I'd say at least
All right,
20.
so if we're being asked for the maximum of $9,000, that literally is going to be paid over 20, whatever, over 20 years, let's say.
Right.
So,
Bless you.
if you don't mind, rather than getting into pointing fingers and things like that, can you find out from the finance director how much upwards of $9,000 will cost over 20 years of the bond issue?
Sure. Yeah,
We may be talking about
literally hundreds of dollars.
$100 a month.
Right. A
So
year,
why
a
don't
year,
A year.
hundreds of dollars a year.
Right, so why don't could you get that information
Absolutely.
for us?
Yeah, I
and
think
then
that's a
we'll
good
discuss.
suggestion.
Yeah, Tom's on vacation for another week or so, but certainly I can have him look at that. And just to be clear, Greyhawk, and I said this at the council meeting today, is probably is as responsible and deserves as much credit as anybody in terms of having this building being completed. I mean, let me take a step back. I don't think anybody would argue with me, have a reasonable argument against me, to say that the building is not a success, both from a standpoint of design, cost when you compare it to previous iterations of the project. And, you know, it was billed as a 15-month project, so we're getting in the 16th month. As far as construction projects go, that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
But to back up my feeling, you own the building, we don't.
well,
Here you-
but here's what I want to do,
So
because
you
I
should pay.
when you say you, I'm also a
I'm
board
sorry,
member.
I'm sorry.
And,
I meant
and what I'm
township.
trying to avoid, which came up last Monday, was a member of the audience who heard the discussion, also couched it similar to the way you're doing now and said, how did this become us versus them? And it's not us versus them. At least for me, it's not. Maybe because I work for council and I sit on the board. But let's face it, all of the money that,
Yes, I'm
whatever
not
money
blaming
goes to
you, I'm
pay
not
for this,
pointing at you.
but whatever money goes to pay for this is coming from the taxpayers, one way or the other. The township is the library's primary source of income through tax dollars. So it's not a case of who's at fault, because there is no single issue that kept the library, and and like Joe and I said, we're talking days. We're not talking, well, it's a 4-month delay and it's gonna cost an extra $200,000. We're talking days and what, $1,800 or, no, not,
14,
yeah.
14.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're talking about huge issues here. With the last change order, we are,
$18,000 is a lot of money.
but it's money
But
well
when you
spent.
look at the total we've been spending,
Right,
right, it's,
Yeah,
And at this stage of the game, I think we just should couch it until we find out how much the actual number is.
well, and I agree with
It
I
makes it
agree
more
with everyone.
palatable, you know, if we're
Let's
talking
find out what the
$100,000.
impact is, because,
because it's not a one-time payout.
It's not a
like
one-
we're writing a check for $7,000, right?
So I mean, I think it's probably just best to hear the number and then, you know,
All right,
let's
I'll-
wait until
I'll wait.
we get
See
the
if
number.
we get a proposal and what the
I
term,
just, every
what the
time
term is.
we get hit with certain amounts of money, it's less money that we get to spend on the kids' programs and on everything else that we provide. We provide such a wonderful service to the township that you can't nickel and dime us all the time.
oh,
And I say
I
you,
don't-
meaning
right.
the
Was
township.
it the whole council or just,
no, the amendment passed 3-1, so.
okay.
Where Sandy started, and then I agree with you, let's just do this if it's a couple $100 amortized over however many years. But where you started, it wasn't an us versus them of town hall and the library. It was, if Greyhawk is supposed to keep soundly moving along and get this done on time, then why is it the town's problem that it isn't stopped? Not the township versus the library. I mean,
Right.
the town, if it was their job to keep it moving along, and okay, we're a month over, then isn't their problem with the contractor, not with us?
No, and I'll explain why, because the way the contract was constructed for Greyhawk, it was based on, and the way it is with most professional services, it's based on an hourly rate. And so there was a not to exceed $18,000 number month to month, based on how many hours Rob Notley and Mike Schaefer were gonna work on this project, and anybody else, I guess, in their office, at their determined hourly rate. The $18,000 is what we budget for, it's not necessarily what we spend, but it was a contract based on a period of time. Now, let's just say for argument's sake that council decided not to pass the amendment. Then either one of two things are happening. Greyhawk's either working without getting paid for it, or they're still going to get the project done. Right? They'll still help us make sure we get our TCOs, get our COs, make sure everything's taken care of. However, is it going to be as effective? Are they going to put these guys on other jobs that are actually paying it? Because it's not like we're the only project Greyhawk has. They have other projects, they're building other buildings, they're managing other projects. And if they're not receiving any current revenue, and they go physically be at these other jobs, and something else happens, you know, that we need immediate attention, and now I'm stuck working directly with the contractor, not being a construction person, or I'm calling them up and waiting for them to basically get to our problem. It's just not a efficient, functional way of operating.
All right, switch hats. Now you're not the township manager, you're a board member. Are you comfortable with that?
Am I comfortable with the contract amendment?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not what's being asked here tonight.
Right.
That's already a done deal.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
we have no control.
all
over
we
it.
have control over is saying, yes, we'll help pitch in, or no.
Right.
And it's more palatable to me if we're talking hundreds of dollars a year.
Right, so
And-
when we get the final proposal, we'll vote yay or nay on that.
All right.
But I think we need more information on what the actual
Right.
proposal is.
How
Or
about
we
that?
have like a snowball fight, in the parking lot, and we decide, I'll
And-
win this.
Anything else, Scott, on the building?
We are looking at having a grand opening. We're gonna look at this as a soft opening, so the grand opening, the pomp and circumstance will be sometime after Labor Day, when Morristown's no longer a summer ghost town, which it can tend to be. When we've worked out the kinks and made sure that the whole building's fully functional. So, no specific date's been set, but sometime after Labor Day.
And the soft opening is.
As soon as we get the
As soon as the
TCO, which
TCO 's
could
in our
be,
hands.
When do you think?
So we're thinking like 2 weeks.
could be Friday, no, it could be Friday and we could be open
This
Monday.
Friday?
Yeah.
Yes.
The day after tomorrow.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we're there.
No problem.
I mean,
Okay.
we're there.
Yeah, it looks great. It really.
Yeah, Scott and I walked around shortly before the end of business today and surveyed the landscape.
It's very impressive.
It looked good.
It was nice to park there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
I'd like that real nice.
I'm sorry, I do have one more thing in the scope of this project. Rick Reagan, who's working with me on this, as the council's planner and architect, and I will probably be giving our recommendation to council at the next council meeting in terms of what to do with this building. I have not been secretive at the council meetings as to where my mind is at, and I haven't at these meetings as well. The fact of the matter is that according to Mr. Reagan and Mr. Notley from Greyhawk, they've looked at this building very closely over the last several years. In the world of code, construction and zoning and things like that, buildings are grandfathered in for uses for different, and once this building ceases to become a library for any other use, it would constitute a change of use, and it would immediately trigger this building needing to come up to code. I'm not talking about fitting it out for another purpose. I'm just talking about before you start planning something else in this building, They estimate it to be building. The roof's a problem, the HVAC system's a problem. It would need to be tied into the new stormwater system that's now been created on site. It's not aesthetically a building that I'm not sure anybody likes, but from a functionality standpoint, it also, according to the construction professionals, is not worth saving.
Can you ballpark how much it would cost to take it down?
300,000, I don't have to ballpark it, that's
Wow.
about between 280 and 300,000. So what?
That I'll chip in.
Money well spent.
So, but basically what we'd be looking at is, council is not near making any decision in terms of what the permanent plan is for this space, this area. But if it is to have some type of building on the site, what you're going to hear at the next council meeting is basically that it would be less expensive and certainly a lot more functional to take this building down and plan something to suit and build that. If that's even what council wants. There's just no scenario where this building has any value going forward. And if anything, it's a liability going forward.
And council will make the entire decision on that.
So council, well, the decision they need to make is I've already asked for, in the capital budget for this year, which lists all the different projects, council has agreed to put up in the operating budget the 10% that's needed for deposit, down payment on any bond. Now the next stage for them to make a decision is actually to bond each of those projects. There's road projects, there's a project to engineer the repairs to the parking lot across the street, there's some recreation projects, but one of them is the demolition of this building. So the next time council needs to make a decision on this will be on the bond to take this building down. I think from a standpoint of them agreeing the building should come down, there's really no official action that they need to take. The official action needs to be taken on actually spending the money to do something with this building.
And will taking down the building also include sod or some aesthetically pleasing, and that this will not be
so that
just a
cars
pile of
don't get
weeds
backed
across the
up.
parking lot?
There's two very different questions. Somewhat, yes, I would anticipate there'd be some type of landscaping, even if it's temporary landscaping, so it's not dirt
Pile
and
of
mud.
weeds across from it.
And no, as we've discussed before, Church is a county road. And any improvements that would be done to the intersection would have to be approved by the county.
Have we contacted them?
Yes, we have talked with the county. The issue is, and this has been discussed, it was discussed a year ago with the township engineer. The problem with the traffic on Second going west towards Church is, yes, is the Main Street lane, and more specifically, as it pertains to Second Street, it's the left-hand turn. And what the engineer has told council and me is essentially what you need to alleviate the traffic is a left-hand turn lane. What you could possibly get with the way that the infrastructure is without really making this a huge project, is you could put in a right turn lane, because if we take the building down, we could go into our property. But the problem is on the other side of Church, on the other side of the intersection, you can't widen the road at all. So the only thing you can get is a right-hand turn lane, and what would happen is, the right-hand turns is not what's causing the traffic, it's the left-hand turns. So if there's a right-hand turn lane, the people going straight are still going to be stuck, potentially behind someone making a left turn. Then you have the issue of people going straight, potentially going into the right-hand turn lane, which is a potential hazard. So it's not something that I'm waving the white flag on, but it's certainly not as easy as let's just widen the intersection and put in a right turn lane.
Just avoid the intersection.
Okay, Scott, thank you.
Yeah, that's all I
Scott,
have.
I have one more question. It hadn't been brought up in a couple of months. There was some question about the cafe in the front of the building, and who would be taking it over, and who would have to outfit it. and-
Right, what we decided to do is to wait until we're in the building. The specs have been put together on fitting the property out. And just take a step back, the original plan was to try to get a vendor in who would do the fit out for us. And it just, a cafe in a municipal library is not what anyone would call a proven business model. It's really no more complicated than that. So, although Joe and I know it would be successful,
Right,
we go
in the
talk
Barnes
to
and
people, right, well, but that's a little bit, and we did have Starbucks in here, a guy that had,
No, I just
Yeah.
meant the business model aspect. of
right,
it.
but it's still, it's a little different than that. So, in talking to some restaurateurs, including some on Main Street, the plan was changed for us to do the fit out, which really actually makes better sense anyway, because if it doesn't work out with the vendor, everything stays with us. Not to mention, as we pointed out in the issue with the Greyhawk contract, what we do will be rolled into a 20, 25, 30-year bond. Whereas and this is the way it was done in Cherry Hill and Princeton, where the vendor came in and did the fit out, but they amortized the payments, and so the township didn't collect dime one until like year 4 or 5 or something like that. So in this way, we control the equipment, we fit it out the way we want, we bring somebody in, they're immediately paying rent, which will exceed what we're paying for the bond for the fit out. So it's going to be a net positive from the very beginning. But we just wanted to get into the building before we do that. Sandy's not going to do the fit out. We're going to have that done as a separate project.
Any other questions for Scott or Joe? Okay, anybody have any other new business? Right, no? No other public comment? Or any public comment? No closed session is needed tonight?
None, no actionable items, Mr. President.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Who seconded? You did, Debbie?